The universe is a violent place, but usually, that violence has the decency to happen nearby. We are used to fighting on the ground, in the air, or even in the orbital paths of our own planets. We are used to seeing our enemy. But the lords of the active nucleus, the Quasar kings, didn't believe in proximity. They existed in a galaxy nearly 1 billion light-years away, a distance so vast that even light takes an epoch to cross it. They didn't need a fleet. They didn't need soldiers. They sat at the heart of their own galaxy, orbiting a supermassive black hole that was gorging itself on a cluster of stars. They harnessed the polar jet of that black hole, a quasar beam of pure relativistic plasma that carried more energy than 1 billion suns. They didn't invade, they simply aimed. For centuries, that beam traveled across the intergalactic void, a needle of death moving at 99% of the speed of light. When it finally reached our sector, it didn't just hit us, it began to delete the solar system. They thought the distance was their ultimate shield. They assumed that because they were firing from the edge of the observable universe, we would be dead long before we could even identify the source. They believed that by using a quasar as a sniper rifle, they had found the perfect, unreachable high ground. They were catastrophically wrong. They forgot that the human race doesn't just look at the stars, we calculate them. They assumed that a Type 2 civilization like ours would simply shrivel under the heat of a Type 3 cosmic engine. They forgot that if you fire a beam of light at a species that has mastered the mirror, you aren't just attacking them, you are providing them with a weapon. We created the Speculum Alpha Protocol. And we birthed the 9th Intergalactic Response Wing. The Relay Redirectors. We don't use ships to fight a quasar beam. A ship is just a drop of water in a blast furnace. Instead, we built the Great Array, a swarm of 10 million hexagonal mirror sleds stationed in the Oort cloud, at the very edge of the sun's gravitational influence. These aren't just mirrors, they are masterpieces of refractive engineering, coated in superliquid tungsten, and stabilized by dark matter anchors. We don't try to absorb the energy. We don't try to block it. We catch the beam, we bend it, and we send it back. We are the Relay Redirectors, and we're about to show the Quasar Kings that the longest-range shot in history is about to become the world's most expensive boomerang. I am High Admiral Silas Vane. I am standing in the Aperture Command, at the center of the array. My HUD is saturated with the glare of 1 billion light-years of concentrated fury, and my skin is tingling from the sheer radiation leaking through the shields. And I'm about to return to sender. The mission was the final refraction. The quasar beam had already struck the planet Pluto, vaporizing it into a cloud of ionized gas in less than a second. It was now sweeping toward Neptune. If it hit the gas giant, the resulting atmospheric ignition would turn the outer solar system into a second short-lived star, incinerating Earth in the process. Mirror swarms engaged the coherent phase. Align the hexagons. I want a perfect parabolic curve. I roared into the system-wide link. The delay was minimal as the command center was integrated into the array itself. Redirector 2, Sarah. The primary lens is at 80% alignment. The heat is intense, Silas. The gold plating on the edge units is already starting to boil. Redirector 3, Jax. I've got a magnetic anchor failure on the western quadrant. The gravity of the beam is pulling the mirrors toward the center. We're losing the focus. Fix it. We don't get a second chance at this. The quasar beam arrived. It wasn't a beam in the way we think of lasers. It was a wall of white-violet fire, miles wide, traveling with such kinetic force that it pushed the very fabric of space in front of it. When it hit the first layer of our redirector array, the vacuum of space didn't stay empty. The stray photons hitting the mirrors created a localized atmosphere of pure light. The mirrors groaned. I could hear it through the haptic sensors, the sound of 10 million machines fighting to stay in formation against a pressure that should have crushed them. The gold-plated surfaces turned a blinding, iridescent white as they caught the first lick of the quasar's jet. Coolant to maximum. Vent the nitrogen. From the back of the mirrors, massive plumes of liquid nitrogen coolant erupted, creating a temporary frozen nebula behind the array. It was the only thing keeping the tungsten from melting. Through the forward view I saw the beam. It was the most terrifyingly beautiful thing I had ever seen, the concentrated hunger of a black hole, delivered across the universe to our front door. Align the aperture. Target the core of the Nadir galaxy. We didn't just want to reflect the light, we had to focus it. We used the gravitational lens of the sun itself to help bend the beam. By positioning the mirrors in a specific parabolic arc, we funneled the miles-wide quasar jet into a needle-thin point. The focus is locked. Silas, if we do this, there's no turning back. The recoil will scatter the array. Sarah yelled, her voice barely audible over the roar of the magnetic stabilizers. Do it. Send it home. We triggered the phase lock. The 10 million mirrors shifted simultaneously by a fraction of a degree. The quasar beam, which had been washing over us like a tidal wave, was suddenly caught in the trap. The light didn't just bounce, it was compressed. It was forced through the center of the array, spiraling into a violet needle of relativistic plasma that was even more concentrated than the original shot. The universe seemed to shudder. The return stroke ignited. The violet needle lanced out from the center of our array. It didn't travel toward a planet. It traveled back along the exact same path the original beam had taken. It was a spear of light, aimed directly at the heart of the galaxy a billion light-years away. The recoil was absolute. The redirector array didn't just break, it was physically pushed back toward the inner solar system. Thousands of mirror sleds were shattered by the kinetic feedback, their gold plating torn away as they were flung into the void. My command center vibrated with a violence that threw me against the restraints, the metal of the hull screaming as the G-force climbed to levels that the stabilizers couldn't handle. I watched on the long-range temporal sensors. Because the light was traveling so fast, we were seeing the result in a compressed time frame. The violet spear traveled through the intergalactic void. It passed through nebulae, through empty space, and finally, it reached the nadir galaxy. The Quasar Kings, sitting in their unreachable fortress around their black hole, had no warning. They had spent millions of years believing that their distance made them gods. The reflected beam hit their central black hole's accretion disk. The result wasn't just an explosion, it was a cosmic disruption. Our focused beam, carrying the compressed energy of their own quasar plus the kinetic force of our redirection, hit the black hole's magnetic poles. The stable jet they had been using to snipe us was suddenly backfed with its own power. The black hole's poles flipped. The accretion disk shattered. The quasar didn't just stop firing, it underwent a bipolar outflow collapse. A shockwave of radiation, larger than the galaxy itself, erupted from the core of the nadir galaxy. The Quasar Kings, their fortress, and their entire civilization were vaporized in a millisecond by the very engine they had tried to use against us. The long-range signal went dark. The source point was null. The violet light in our sky began to fade. The quasar beam, no longer being fed from the source, dissipated into a harmless aurora that stretched across the outer solar system. The Kuiper Belt was no longer a war zone, it was just a graveyard of gold-plated scrap and ice. I stood in the wreckage of the Aperture Command, my ears ringing and my eyes stinging from the flash. The primary monitors were dead, but the manual sensors showed the truth. The threat from the edge of the universe was gone. We had reached across a billion light-years and snuffed out a Star Eater. Sarah. Jax, report, I rasped, tasting copper in my mouth. I'm here, Silas. My sled is spinning out of control, but the mirrors are cold. The light is gone. We did it. Still breathing. The array is 60% destroyed, but the path is clear. We sent it back, Admiral. We actually sent it back. I looked out at the stars. They were no longer targets. They were no longer weapons. They were just fire in the dark, and for the first time in a century they looked peaceful. Humanity has proven the ultimate truth of the cosmic extremis. You can hide at the end of the universe. You can use the most powerful engine in existence to threaten our home. You can tell us that we are too small and too far away to matter. But we are the species that knows how to use the light. We are the relay redirectors. And if you aim at us, you'd better be prepared to catch what we send back. The beam is broken. The quasar is dark. The solar system is silent. The mission is over. Now, someone get a recovery crew out here. I want to go home and see a sunrise that doesn't try to kill me.